the Florida Atlanta game when you looked back on it?
I think there was some good, there was some bad. You know, anytime you get into a game, whether we win or lose, it's always the same process for us in terms of evaluate the film, reinforce the things that we did well, and then talk about the things that we need to improve on and correct. So that'll be the process no matter what the result is, because if you do it that way, you know, game in, game out, then the goal is to get better coming out of each one of them. So.
How happy were you that I think the first half I counted on 22, 24 players on defense, and I didn't see any big communication errors in game one with that many players in the new system. Was that a positive?
Yeah, certainly. I think, you know, we always talk about and stress it, you know, I want it to get better even than what it was. Our staff wants it to get better even than what it was. We did have a lot of guys out there playing. We had a lot of guys who maybe were under the lights for the first time or just playing in their first game here in this stadium. So I thought for the most part we handled it well. There was a couple occasions where we got to be louder and we got to do it better, and we're emphasizing that this week.
Dylan and Khalil being out long-term on the Jonathan side, I was wondering how that affects your depth. We saw like Avion Gross was in there playing a good number of snaps. Just how you see that secondary depth being hit by it.
Yeah, I mean, they're two guys that are good players that were in the plans to play a lot, and they're not available for the for the foreseeable future. So, you know, those guys go down, and other guys got to step up. I thought Avion did a really nice job. You know, he was spent a lot of the week on the scouts, and then all of a sudden, you know, in the game, he's got to come in and he's got to go and play, and that won't be the last time that happens. It's a football season, so some of the younger guys are going to have to, you know, be fast forwarded and be able to give us meaningful snaps. So.
Is Armorian on the table for you? And when we saw him last week, I don't know if that was like personal or injury or.
Say that again.
Armorian Smith.
Yeah.
Is he on the table for you? And was last week sort of a personal thing or an injury thing, as much as you can say?
Yeah, I mean,
obviously,
each week's its own week. Obviously, he's been, you know, having some personal things that he's been dealing with just with his loss. So each week's its own week, and so I think he's been able to respond from you know, some of the things and get back and be around. But those decisions are made week to week based on him and Coach Smith and whether he's available or not. So
with Dylan in particular, when you talk about that, the back end of your defense, with his versatility, how much coming into the year was he maybe integral to moving the different guys around the secondary?
Yeah, you know, he's played multiple spots. Obviously, played a lot of corner last year, safety and nickel, you know, this year. So I think when you have a guy who can do multiple things, it's always a good piece to the puzzle. The one thing that Coach Adams does a good job with at safety, we move those guys around a lot, not only DT, but, you know, all the guys. So I think what it does is it creates flexibility and it creates some depth and creates some multiple skill sets. So he certainly, DT has one. So.
The young guys that I think we had talked with Lou about with freshmen. I can't remember if it was Denson or Brinson that's playing.
Yeah.
But are one of those guys able to maybe step in?
Yeah, Thompson, Denson, Brinson, all three of those guys are, you know, guys that we brought in the secondary, and I'm excited about all three of them. I think they're all going to be great players for us. You know, maybe their timetables moved up a little bit than what the initial plan was, but it never goes according to plan. So that's football.
You talked last week about how much you've learned in week one. What were you pleased, like, when you see guys tackle in space week one as well as you guys did, as many different guys in the backfield being disruptive? Like, what's your initial sort of reaction in your chest as you're seeing that?
Well, I was proud of how hard they played. That was the first thing. I thought they played really, really hard. I thought they were physical, and I thought they did do a good job of leveraging the ball and tackling in space. Like you mentioned, we missed some, but when we missed them with leverage, which is the goal. And, you know, I think every week, you know, that's something that's a concern and it's a challenge for a defense. And I think always at the beginning of the year, it's always a little bit harder than maybe towards the middle or end, simply because the limiting rules in terms of tackling and things like that. You don't get to maybe tackle as much as you did back in the, you know, 10, 15 years ago. So I think those things were positive.
How much was like it seemed like you had corners pressing a little bit. How much was that based on a team that didn't throw the ball a lot downfield versus what you'll see this week? How much was that opponent specific versus sort of what you want to do?
I would say it's game plan specific, right? So what we do is based on what we got to do to win the game. And when I say that, I know I smiled, but like I've always kind of viewed it that, like, what do we got to do to win this game? And so if that's press, that's press. If that's off, that's off. If that's playing cover two all game, that's playing cover two. If it's bailing and playing a third all game, then that's what we got to do. So we feel like we have the ability to mix and the ability to do different things. and each game plan kind of requires something different.
When you went back and looked at the penalties in particular,
Yeah.
I guess, how do you kind of balance that line? You done mentioned about the aggression with which they play.
Yeah.
Versus the unique nature of that quarterback, some of the
Yeah.
slides. I mean, like, how did you view the penalties?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the fact of the matter is, we can't have that many penalties, right? It's unacceptable. It extends drives, it gives first downs. That's the first thing. The second thing is, there's aggressive acts of playing the game, and then there's like things that happen after the game that have or after the whistle that have nothing to do with playing football. Those were in the course of the game. We got to be better when a quarterback slides of yielding and pulling off. I mean, to me, quite frankly, that's it. We got to keep our hand down when we're straining up front on the D line. We got a hand up in the face. When we are able to get a guy out on the edge, don't grab the horse collar, wrap through the legs. And again, when the quarterback goes down late on you, you got to be able to yield. And so those are really how I view it. And you show the video. We've done some drills on it. And then we talk about it. But I didn't feel it was a after the whistle, that type of thing, which is even less acceptable. None of the penalties are acceptable. We can't have it. We have 8 again. We're going to put ourselves in a tough situation to win a game.
It's been a while since people around here felt really good about the defense. I wondered if you've heard from people this week, fans, anybody else, just in your interactions, if you've heard from sort of in your walkabouts in life, anybody?
No
reaction?
No, same. I'm kind of insulated. I hear from my wife. She said to take the trash out. My kids, they just want to talk about Sparty. My dad always gives suggestions about what we could have done better, regardless if we win or lose. So no, and it's one game, right? Each game's its own week. We talked at the beginning of the week. There's a fine line between good defense and bad defense. I've been doing this 24 years. Sometimes you think it's not going real well. You're this close to getting it well. Sometimes you're playing well and you're this close to playing bad. So each week's its own week, and each week we got to play with detail. And if we don't, we won't have a good game.
Talk about the first points of the Jonathan Smith era coming on a safety as a defensive coordinator. I assume you have to take some pride in that.
That's cool.
What you saw of him, and then also with Alex being, we hadn't seen him in 2 years, and he gets a start.
Yeah, I mean, again, he's on the flip side of that, right? We got a couple guys that got banged up in the game. Alex is coming back from the being banged up. So you get put in those hard situations that are either going to strengthen you or weaken you. I mean, that's in life, right? Hard, strong, strengthens you or it makes you quit. And so he's gotten stronger from it. So it was exciting to have him out. As far as a safety, listen, we're not thinking about it historical or perspective-wise. It was like, we got him down there, we got 2 points, we got the ball back for the offense. Let's go. So
You've been a part of the Big Ten now 12 years or something. I mean, you were on the other side when these guys had some of their very best defenses that I'm sure you remember. And to have, is your hope though that your defense at some point will be like a program identity again that it once was?
yeah, I think if you're a defensive coach and that's your goal, right? You want to play really, really good defense. You want to have a defense that plays really hard. You want a defense that plays physical and goes out and does their job and can be something that the football team and the program and the university and the town can kind of hang their hat on. I mean, I think that would be the goal of any coordinator. So is that something we aspire to? Yeah. Do we have work to do to get there? Absolutely. So that takes those things kind of happen over the course of time.
What did you see in Kai Martinez coming out of the portal, and how's he gone about this camp? Just being here about a month or so to playing as much as we saw him.
Ball skills, when we looked at him in the portal, I thought he had really good ball skills, and I thought he did a nice job in coverage and was, willing tackler. And through camp and through game one, I think he's shown himself to be that. He certainly has things we want to continue to see him get better at, but I think he's working hard.
Coach Smith talked about the D-line depth.
Yeah.
Obviously, before the season, you probably knew as a staff that was a big strength you guys had, but how encouraging was it to see it really come into full effect?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I think we would have sat here in mid-August and, we just talked about depth in general in terms of having a lot of guys that we feel like we could put in the game, and hopefully everyone feels like we held true to that, and we get a lot of guys in, you get guys snaps, it keeps people involved, it helps build depth, it gives people opportunities to go out there and shine. So I thought it was good to have multiple kind of D linemen rolling through and really at all the positions.
When an offense is struggling to produce and the defense is able to, generate points or get takeaways and stuff, usually they can feed off of that and it can kind of help swing the momentum back in favor of whatever team. But, Brian talked yesterday how that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm curious about is like when it's not happening, how like maybe demoralizing that could be for a defense when you're setting your offense up for success, and then how do you prevent that like late game fade, because that's kind of been an issue for Michigan State's defense in past seasons.
Yeah, so I think here's how I view the game. Like, the defensive job is to go out and stop people, regardless of what the circumstances are, whether the ball's on the 1 yard line or if it's on the 99. I know, so they got to go 99 yards. That's got to be our mentality. We talk all the time about the ability to respond when things aren't going well. We come in the training camp, and that was one of the points of emphasis for training camp that I gave them. There was 3 things, and one of them was the ability to respond, because this year is going to be hard. Okay, the year is going to be hard, and so when things get hard, how are you going to handle it? Are you going to pull together, or are you going to pull apart? And so that's been like a theme of ours, on and on and on, right? And so it's not demoralizing. It's, hey, what do we got to do to help our teammates out? What do we got to do to win the game? That's got to be the mentality. Now, the teams that fall apart, they start thinking about themselves, okay? And they start blaming and complaining. And blame and complain is not a recipe for success in any walk of life. So what happens? We got to pull together, and we got to get their back. And they're going to have our back. There's going to be a game when we're not getting enough stops. I can promise you that. Now, no one wants to hear that, but I'm just telling you, because that's football, right? And we're going to go out and we're going to outscore someone. And that day is coming, and they're going to have our back with it too. So that's just the football. That's how you play together, and it's complementary football. So.
Did you see moments of guys pulling, like especially on defense, like pulling together?
Yeah, absolutely, because I'm in the booth, so like my big thing is like after something occurs, like sometimes I'll ask the staff, hey, how are they down there? How are they doing? And every time I ask, they're like, they're good. Even the touchdown we gave up in the second half, where like I didn't think we executed real well on the drive. We had some things that allowed them to get down there, and I said, how are they? He said, they're fine, they're good. So you just got to go out and play. So
That's always critical, but even more of an unknown this year with so many players that didn't know each other 8 months ago. I mean,
absolutely.
You got to be happy with it.
I was concerned about that, to be honest with you, because of what you just said, because that's built over time, the ability to have that continuity. But I think we talked about it right when we got there, and I think the assistants, the defensive staff have done a really good job of preaching it, and we've just kind of brought it up. But I think you can kind of control that a little bit as a coach, too, how you handle things, right? If you freak out all the time, right, what are the players going to do? They're going to freak out all the time. So, those are the things where, like, when something doesn't go to your way, how do you handle it? How do you respond? And, I think our defensive staff does a really good job with handling it in practice. Not that when things don't go well, it's not acceptable, but it's like, here's what went wrong. Here's why it wasn't good enough. Let's fix it. And
Time for a couple more guys.
Maryland.
Yes.
Another quarterback that will run it, but also throws to the pocket real well, and speed at receiver and explosive running back.
Yeah.
Handful this weekend.
Yeah, they're very good. I mean, they put up 50 points. They moved the ball at will. They threw it. They ran it. They got talented receivers. They got depth. They got size. They got 2 returning backs, all conference guys. The quarterback, not even what he did in the first game, but you watch what he did in Auburn last year in the bowl game. Came in, they jumped up, I think, 21, and so they're impressive. I got a lot of respect for their program and their skill players and their offensive line. I thought did a nice job opening holes, and they've always been a challenge. They got really good coaches. They got a veteran staff. They got a lot of guys on staff that have been former head coaches. So they're a really good program.
And you've coached against them before.
Yeah.
In the past, how similar is this to the Tagovailoa teams, or just in general? Or?
Well, their OCs have been different. They've had, I think this is the 3rd one since I've coached against them. They've always been 11, 12 personnel team. They've always usually operated out of the gun, but like the flavor is a little different, obviously, based on who the OC is. But they've always been a team that can score on you fast, and they certainly have our full attention.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
As your dad